Most operators never become real fleet owners for one simple reason. They still think like drivers. And by the end of this video, I'm going to show you why that mindset keeps truckers trapped in a constant chaos loop. Why more miles are not creating more freedom, and how real fleet owners start building lane structure, repeatable freight systems, weekly profit control, and funding readiness through operational control. Now, the moment I say owner operators still think like drivers, some people automatically get offended. And if that bothers you, you need to ask yourself why. Because if you're working harder every single year, driving more and more miles every year, stress is adding and building more and more every year, but your business still feels financially unstable, then something about the way you're operating has to change. You can't continue to do the same thing expecting different results. Drivers chase movement. Fleet owners build control. Drivers react emotionally to the market, while fleet owners build systems that survive regardless whether the market is up or down. And until that identity shift happens for you, most truckers will stay trapped in a cycle that may look productive from the outside, but never ever will create real freedom. The hidden cause of this problem that a lot of operators tend to sometimes miss is that the industry trained drivers to believe the answer is always more. More freight, more miles, more hustle, more grind, more sacrifice, more time away from home, more missed events, more pressure on the truck. So what happens? Operators, they just keep waking up every single day chasing the next load, right? Chasing the next hot market, going from this week to that week, right? Hoping that it finally creates some type of stability. But chaos cannot create consistency. If your operation changes every single week, your profits will change every single week. If your routes are random, your fuel cost becomes random. If your freight is random, your planning becomes random rather. If your loads are inconsistent, then your cash flow will also become inconsistent. This is why so many operators are exhausted, even when the truck is moving nonstop, because movement alone does not create leverage. Movement without structure, it generally usually creates burnout. I've seen this a lot up close and firsthand. I've seen operators grow strong, really strong weekly numbers, but by the end of the week, Friday, they feel broke, like they have almost nothing left. I've seen trucks run hard, stay loaded, keep the wheels turning, and still not be building savings, stability, or any type of confidence. And it's not because the operators were lazy, or because they didn't want to work, right? It was because the business ultimately had weak structure. A truck without structure is like an engine with a boost leak, right? You can be driving, you can be going up a hill or incline and mashing the pedal strong, but if boost pressure keeps escaping, you're gonna lose power. And this is what happens when an owner operator tries to build a business with driver thinking. They keep adding motion to a broken system instead of fixing the system that controls the entire motion. In order to escape this constant chaos loop, a mindset shift, it needs to take place. Drivers think transaction to transaction, while fleet owners, they think in something more concrete. They think about systems to systems. Drivers constantly ask, how much money can I make today? While fleet owners ask, how do I create predictable weekly profits? Until you change how you think, nothing inside your business will change. It will just continue to be a constant loop of bad emotional decisions. Because real businesses are not built on emotional decisions. They're built on repeatability. Repeatable lanes, repeatable freight strategies, repeatable brokers and customers that build constant, steady relationships, repeatable control costs, and repeatable planning. The operators who are doing well in this industry, they're not chasing the highest rates all across the country. Most of them are running disciplined systems inside controlled operations. They understand something most truckers completely miss. Profit retention matters more than emotional gross revenue. Anybody can chase big weeks. Very few operators can engineer stability and consistency. That is the practice behind what we teach here at the Fleet Formula. You do not become a fleet owner just because you add another truck. You become a fleet owner when you start operating from structure instead of chaos. When you start planning instead of reacting. First, you need to audit where the chaos is coming from. Then, you tighten the operation inside a controlled metro radius. Then, from there, you begin to identify the lanes that reduce your fuel waste, that reduce your wasted time, that reduce unnecessary maintenance pressure. That is the start of a strong foundation. Then from there, you want to focus on building repeatable freight relationships with brokers and customers who support the lane structure that you have identified works best for you. Then after all that's in place, you want to start tracking weekly profit retention, not just gross revenue. And only after the business has control do you start preparing for funding readiness to add another truck to scale. Because capital poured into chaos only multiplies chaos. But capital applied to a structured system can multiply growth. Catch this, because this is the dangerous part about driver thinking. It creates something called permanent reaction mode. You're permanently reacting to brokers, permanently reacting to fuel prices, reacting to constant breakdowns, reacting to rising fuel costs and market shifts, reacting to random freight opportunities and whether the brokers are paying well this week or not. This constant reaction slowly destroys your control. And once control disappears, stress takes over. And then it's left with something called entropy. And entropy is real. And it simply states that any system naturally drifts towards disorder if it's not maintained, if purpose is not put. This is true in physics and it's also true in trucking. Without structure, your operation will not naturally become more stable. It will naturally become more chaotic. And that is why some operators stay trapped at one truck for years, while others slowly build real infrastructure, real margins, and real freedom. One is reacting to the business. The other is designing the business. So if you truly want to cross from drivers to a fleet owner, you have to stop measuring your success by movement alone. More miles do not automatically mean more growth. More loads does not automatically mean more profits. More hustle does not automatically mean more control. Real freedom in this business comes from structure, discipline, operational consistency, and controlling the business instead of letting the business control you. Drivers, they're always chasing the next load. But fleet owners, they're working on building the system. Drivers, they're chasing a better week, while fleet owners build better operations. Drivers are constantly looking for someone to blame and looking for relief, while fleet owners are building leverage. This is the foundation of the Fleet Formula. And if you're serious about building a real trucking business that creates predictable cash flow instead of constant chaos, the next step is simple. Join my upcoming 2-day Fleet Formula Bootcamp. Inside this bootcamp, I'll show you how to start building real lane structure inside a tight metro radius, create more repeatable freight opportunities, reduce your fuel waste, and strengthen your relationships with the customers and brokers. Remember, execute the formula, control the outcome. I'll see you on the next one.